Hello, man. Hello, McDowell's. Hello, PJP. Hello, whoever's watching. Let me get it. There we go. Sounds good. Everything sounds good. I got my growl on. In the world of the absurd, in the theater of the absurd, I guess that's sometimes that's all you can do is just growl. MGTOW, hey, go your own way. Or, hello, MGTOWs. Sometimes I wish I had a really high voice like CS did, or Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was a good example of a big man with a high voice, and that's just fucking funny. Mike Tyson, he was the alpha. Mike Tyson was the alpha. Mike Tyson had go your own way. Hello, MGTOWs. Mike Tyson had such a high voice, but he was the alpha male. He was everything. Everything. He, hey, look at his feet. He got Monica Turner, Lacey Spicer, and what was it? Robin Givens. He got to do Robin Givens, and he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 kids. What makes Mike Tyson so special? Well, he's not an incel. He's the alpha male, and that's about it. But he had that high voice, and he was a rugged guy. He spent some time in jail, got the tattoos on his face, turned to a Muslim faith, and changed his whole life after boxing. Nothing incel about that guy. I often pride myself that during my youth, I was the same size and same height as Mike Tyson. And I was like, yeah, but I'm white and I have a big Jew nose and I can't box. So, but today we're going to talk about the people that we're not as fortunate. We're going to talk about the lottery of birth. We're going to talk about the incel argument. The incel argument is just that. You can look at the lottery of birth or the lottery of birth, and there's a movie out, and you can watch it. I watched the movie, and it was a very good movie if you're into trying to figure out what social justice is. And sometimes we have to deal with that around here, and we have to deal with that in our lives, and things are changing, and there's a progressive movement coming, and that's it. That's the world we live in. The world's getting too big to be anything else, I suppose, and we're going to have to deal with that. So the lottery of birth is it's a rather progressive argument from a rather progressive group of men called incels, and incels are involuntary celibate. And I have a lot of empathy. What is the lottery of birth? What is this thing that they're saying? Well, they're born this way, and they're saying, let me get this back on this page. Ugh, I hate when I do that. I'm screwing up my pages. Hello, SFM. Hello, Financial Freedom. Hello, PJP. Hello, RP. The lottery of birth. They're born this way. People are born into assignments in life, and one of the assignments that incels are born into is the lottery of birth. It's a justice theory. It's a theory of justice and injustice in America, in around the world. If you're born with low diversity, then you're going to present some physical problems in this world of size, dominance. Like I say, Mike Tyson was the dominant male. He has 6 kids. He had 3 really beautiful wives. There was no inequality in basic rights when it came to Mike Tyson. He just took what he got. But for a lot of men, that is not true. What's the actual definition of lottery of birth? I think I got it in a low bar, but I'm not on that page. So I got to type it in real. The lottery of birth, it's a philosophical argument of what it is. Hobbes did it Locke did it. Rousseau did it, even though I hate Rousseau, and you know I hate Rousseau. But John Rawls did it. And in 1971, John Rawls, the American philosopher from blah, 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 blah. Let me see where he's from. I think it was Massachusetts or Boston, Massachusetts. Talked about the lottery of birth, and his way of talking about the lottery of birth, he was talking about it in a more social justice sort of way, and that's why I was trying to link the two. When the incels they talk about lottery of birth, it's your birth designation, whether you're born rich or born poor or born good looking or born with the attributes of Mike Tyson and me, because I am so pretty. Whatever that designation is, the incels were born without. And then we start talking about the theory of justice. We talk about whether life is fair. And I don't want to hear the argument that life isn't fair. Everybody says that, and life can be fair. We're not talking about an egalitarian fairness. We're talking about equality and opportunity, equality and equality in the world. Egalitarianism is a little bit different, but for our incel brothers, the theory of justice just didn't it kind of escaped them. They're born into this world, and with not normative human condition is what I'm trying to say. Fairness is going to evade them. When we talk about justice, we talk about fairness. We can only do it when we talk about these equal basic rights and equality of opportunity and equality of your advantages in society and raising the prospects for the least advantaged in our society. We see this with incels in their physical form to the world. Some of them are autistic. Some of them are just consider themselves too ugly to have a female and to enjoy the human condition like most men would, like Mike Tyson did. The ability to move around between females and stuff like that. But they put an emphasis squarely on we're not going to be able to examine or do some of these things that a lot of men are going to be able to do with the female, and they place a lot of emphasis on that. There's sort of this hypocrisy in the world to them of origin, of structure, and stuff like that. And we all know that they're not going to be able to do these things, but we have to start asking the questions to ourselves. Is this a basic equal right? Are they least advantaged in our society? And I think when you look at some of the things, a lot of incels will be where the questions I ask to them at this point, if this is about justice and this is about the argument of justice and basic rights and everything, where is it that you're disadvantaged at? Where can we help that you're disadvantaged at? Now, the first one would come up with opportunity and mating. I don't know what to tell them about opportunity and mating. That's one of the things I don't have a God personality where I can fix that thing and say that, hey, you just go, no, do it and it'll be okay, because that's not going to ever be okay. You're never going to have the same relationships as a Mike Tyson or a me or some of the other guys if you're an incel. And I'm empathetic to that. I'm empathetic to that position, because I know right off the bat that there is a basic inequality to their lifestyle, which will affect the human condition. But can they move into a different way of thinking in basic rights and everything? Now, another place where I find that incels may be a little disadvantaged at is in the workplace. They're dimorphically probably smaller. They can't do the work of a regular male. They may have some malformities that are noticeable. Some of them go from slight malformities with autism just oofy doofy look and that goofiness that they display and everything. And that's another thing. I can't fix what has already happened. We can't fix. So we have to say, are these people being disadvantaged? And this is one of the things in the workplaces, in their opportunity in the workplaces, that we can, as a society, take a look and say, does John have every qualification? John, the oofy doofy guy, is kind of goofy. Everybody doesn't like him, so he's not going to get a promotion based upon his his swagginess or his good looks or his and that's generally how you're going to get promotions. You just present yourself as a responsible human in the society, and you got the good looks, you got everything, like newscasters or something. They get those jobs. Basically, you're not going to have an incel newscaster, so you're not going to have they're not going to get them opportunities to the least advantage in our society as of that. And I can see that. Now we can take a look at Rawls, and in his mind, he does this experiment. It's called the original position. The original position is a mutual distraction from the rational person. You remove yourself from the original hypothesis structure, and you go back to the original position of what they are. They're what an incel would be. An incel has low sexual diversity, probably his mother or father mated with a cousin or something like that. I don't know how these things happen, or just basically just an ugly demeanor in life. So I can see from one aspect already, we've been talking for a few short minutes, that they're going to be disadvantaged in jobs. They're not going to get the opportunities. Even if they're running for politics, everybody likes the great looking politician with the great teeth and the great smile and the great so they're going to be disadvantaged in our society. And I talked about this already, about being disadvantaged, single males being disadvantaged in society and politics, because most of the people in Congress, most of the people in the House, most of the people in the situations that are going to make the rules for marriage and all those things, they're married. They're going to bias and err on the side of the female. They're going to bias and err on the side of married people. The basic corruptions that we see in this life is, what would I do for my family? How far would I go for my family and stuff? And we see this come out in politics. We see this come out. So they're going to be disadvantaged in those things. They're going to be disadvantaged at the job. They're going to be socially disadvantaged. And this leads to a quality of the human condition that is untenable. And I'm empathetic to these things. We often say that. Let me take a look back at the page here and say hello to everybody. Woo, live stream. There's been a shortage of live streams this week, hasn't there? I meant to do a little live stream, but I've been feeling so terrible, and Dougie's been in so much need that I just can't do as many live streams as I used to do. And so hello, Ken. Hello, Zoom, my friend, Zoom. How you been? You haven't seen Garchamp, PJP, Jetty. The Jetty Far has ESP. I love that. Is that to the ESP joke about the PUAs? We said they're just going to do a Jedi mind trick on the girls, and that's going to work for them. PUAs are interesting too when you look into this sort of incels. They want to be the normal guys. So the PUAs and the PUA book writers and the PUAs, excitable salesmen, they want to sell them something, and they want to sell them beauty. They want to sell them a new found beauty in themselves, or a newfound beauty that they can project to society. So up pops PUA, tries to hijack the MGTOW movement, and tries to hijack the incel movement. And they're just thinking in a very utilitarian way. Now that's when you look at Rawls and you look at the theory of justice. Rawls comes up through this theory of justice. And you gotta know what Rawls was, and the social justice thing started 1971. John Rawls, was it John Rawls? Yeah, John Rawls. I think it was John Rawls. John Rawls pretty much killed both of his brothers. He got sick, and his brothers caught dysentery, and one of the brothers caught it young, and then he got sick again and of pneumonia, and his other brother caught it, and he always carried this in life with him. This guilt for being a frail man, and he wasn't really I guess he was skinny, and he always thought that he had killed both of his brothers, and he carried this life, and he thought life is unfair, and I got dealt an unfair hand, and he didn't really delve into the metaphysics of the argument with God himself, the immortal God or something like that, and why and what was evil and what was tragedy and stuff like that. And that was tragic. It was a tragic thing that happened, and that kind of developed Rawls. And Rawls took on a real utilitarian attitude in the 50s and 60s when he was writing. In some of his works, you can't look at the theory of justice and put it with the other theories, because all his theories kind of contradict each other. And which is really weird out of a philosopher. When I had to learn that one, that you don't read his other works and read the theory of justice, because it's just going to contradict. And you can see the utilitarian overtones flow into Rawls' work. He takes on a very utilitarian attitude, and when we look at the incels, that's what we do. We take in a very utilitarian attitude towards what we think they can do. They can work out. They can change their, maybe get some surgery on their face, wear a little makeup, present themselves in some clothes that will present themselves to the female as an alpha male, and learn little tricks. And they got a ton of names for them, the Oofy Doofy, and I don't know. I tried to learn the names for their language and everything, and they incorporate the black pill. They incorporate the red pill. Black Pill himself was talking about that today, into their lifestyles, and try to work with what they have. Take lemons and turn it into lemonade, and that's a very utilitarian attitude. And Rawls, from the theory of justice, worked up to the theory of justice through a very utilitarian attitude, and he decided late in life in 1971. That he would look into this thing, and it became what was the social justice movement. Now, when I was growing up, I didn't really notice the social justice movement and the call for. I noticed the 60s, and I noticed the 70s, and the hippies, and all that stuff, and that was this very social justice movement. They were calling for equality. They were calling for equality in a lot of things, and it was seen as some people seen it. I was watching a film the other day, and the government convened one of the Rothschilds convened a United States government panel with all these rich people, and I can't trilateral convention or something like that, to deal with the hippie music, the hippie movement, which I just thought was funny, and I just learned that. I didn't know about that. So when we talk about this kind of social justice, we look out at the females, and I will say the feminist movement. This is where I get in the argument with these things. I watched Hartman today, and I watch sometimes the Young Turks, and I watch Sam Cedar and all these shows, and I want to listen in, want to hear what they're saying and everything about the world. And they often come down very hard on the incels, and it's a big incel joke. But when I look at the principles of justice, and so they'll come down hard on the incels, and then it became very clear to me that what they were talking about is this inequality towards the incels. It's basic inequality in the way they thought about them, and when you look at the other arguments, you see the feminists, and I always say that feminists are just female incels. They're women that can't do as good with men, so they have to develop some kind of skill in life where they can take care of themselves. Uh, Kudos to them. Great. Develop those skills, learn how to have babies, whatever it takes. I don't really care. Uh, I'll support them 100%. Do that. Get your job on, all that stuff, and go to college. And I'm not going to make no argument against all that stuff because I think every person has a basic right to these equalities of opportunity in our life, and especially in America, where you should enjoy those things. And if you can become the smartest person in the room, become the smartest person in the room. But with Rawls at that point, he does this contradictory social philosophy that addresses distributive justice from this Kantian perspective. It becomes very hard. Now, when I say, if you're going to read Rawls, or you're going to look at the lottery of birth and the theory of justice, it's a very bare bones 1971 sort of look at social justice. So it's what I would call the Matrix sort of bare bones social justice thing. It's just the bones inside of the womb, and you have to put it's still to this day. And that's what I think we're seeing over this period of time, from 71 up to like 2018, 19 here. We're looking at basic liberties growing. We're looking at the full scheme of basic liberties growing, and we're looking at how we treat disadvantaged individuals in our society, how we treat races, how we treat people that are different, how we treat Muslims, how we treat a lot of different groups, Irish people, and we try to claim that everybody has this equal basic liberties. The Statue of Liberty, come to America, give me your downtrodden, give me your weak, give me those people. And that's what we say in America up till now. Well, when Trump, he wants to build a big wall around America, and it's just like, we're done. No more of that stuff. Hey, Doug's, how you doing? Doug's out wandering around. Doug's blind now, and he's ending a down period of his life. So I got to watch out where he gets stuck at now. He gets stuck in between the doors, and he's blind, so he can't figure out how to get past the door. And he wants to get to the kitchen to get something to eat, but he gets himself all wrapped up in cords and stuff. So I got to watch him. So if I jump up, don't fret here. Throughout Rawls's original position, Rawls took the position of justice, which dictates that each person has a claim to this full schism of basic equal liberties. And we look at the incels, and that's what the incels are saying. They're disadvantaged in their job. They're disadvantaged with women. They're disadvantaged in politics. They're disadvantaged in a lot of different. I think if we look over the whole thing where incels are disadvantaged, we can say, yes, they have a case. I could say, yes, there's a case there for becoming a disadvantaged group and everything. But when I look at the other side of progressism, and I always say MGTOW is a very progressive thing. We're trying to do away with marriage. We're trying to get all of the world to think on this complex theory of this very complex social theory of my social theory too of sexual cryptis and what women really are. And once you know sexual, because you know what women really are, and if we deal with this in this sense of basic equal rights and everything, we can come up with better ideas rather than what's going on now with the gender dynamics war that's going on now. Is well, they're putting meat on the bare bones of this social contract. When we look at the original social, there is no original. So when we look at like Wolf's idea, which Wolf was it? I can't tell you his first name, but Wolf's idea of what is the social contract of men and women, and what is desired of us, and I'm going to go to work, I'm going to pay my taxes, I'm going to have children in this country, everything's going to be fine and great. But but there was a hijacking of this social contract, and men got thrown under the bus, and it turned out to be a scheme or a trap. And it's not that incels are going through this thing by themselves. MGTOWs are going through this thing, and PUAs are going through this thing, and men in general are going through this thing. And we got to, act as brothers here, be empathetic towards the incel in a way. And each person has the same claim to the basic equal liberties, but incels are disadvantaged. So can we get them put onto a disadvantaged group, barring the what can we do to get you laid thing? And that's what they really worry about, is what they can do to get laid. The PUA can help them with that. The MGTOW can make them comfortable in their lives, do the self-introspection, find out what you do good in life, take some steps to do that, and try to be happy within your own skin. Each of us have to try to be happy within our own skin, or else we're never going to find any happiness in this world, and it's just all going to look absurd and chaotic at a certain point. And that's not a fun way to live. I know this because I lived this way in the sense that I got married, and I bought into the social contract, and I bought into the suffering, and I bought into we got to take care of the ladies, the girls need us, and all that stuff. And I bought into that when I was younger, and that turned out to be a bridge to nowhere program. That turned out to be a lie. So when we look at these things, the theory of social justice, what we're doing is we're questioning for MGTOW how we think that the world should work in the theory of social justice, and we ourselves become social justice warriors. And I always thought it was hypocritical of MGTOWs to talk about social justice warriors when we ourselves are progressive in the sense of social justice. We want things to change. We want to do away with all those marriage things. We want to do away with family courts. We want to do away with human services that deal with the marriage contracts and everything. Hey, Doug, do you need to go outside? I'm going to take a short break right here, and I'm going to put Dougie outside because he's got a strange sense of when I'm talking on here, and I'll be right back. Come on, Doug. Come on, Doug. Hey. My Doug. My Doug. Rubbish. So sorry about that. Whew. That's a little bit of work. I got to carry him out. So I got to pick up Doug and move him to his chain, and he doesn't want to. So I have to chase him around or lure him in with positive affirmations. Then I got to catch him, pick him up, and carry him outside. And then I got to carry him in because he's blind as a bat. But I do it because I love him. I think the way you treat animals, you know what I say about casual cruelty. The way you treat animals is a pretty good is a pretty good indicator of your character. And I love Dougie till the day. I try to keep him alive, but I might have to euthanize him. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. So we were talking about the original position, and each person has a claim to these basic liberties. And I forgot where I left off, and I was probably on a roll at that point. But we're looking at incels and how it affects their lives, and I'm empathetic to those things. And he Rose offers us and what we're talking about here is social justice for men too. And I know a lot of guys will be like, "Oh man, social justice for men. That's crazy, that's creepy, and everything." But that's what the incels are asking for. Um, and we have to consider their argument as being fair, and it inhibits them to equal opportunity in life, especially the mating, and it's in jobs, politics, positions, social positions, and stuff like that. So it does affect them. So we have to look at it. And I know it's social justice, but but it is there, and it's true, and it's real, and at some point somebody's going to have to write a book about it, and somebody's going to have to talk about it, and just not say because when I look at the far left, and I see them, you know, calling the incels incel soy boys, and they were calling well, Gavin McGinnis's soy boys. They were calling them soy boys, and they called them incels. And I was like, that's sort of wrong. That's not very PC of you guys. The inventors of PC were doing anti-PC things, and I said, don't become. So I got kicked off of this guy's show, and just this morning, and I says, you guys aren't being PC, so don't become what you hate. That's what I always say in MGTOW too. Don't let anger and rage and all these things don't become what you hate. You can take more of a Camus sort of view in this, and accept that the life is absurd and chaotic, and just accept that fact. And once you accept it, you can work through it and try to put positive steps in them, and be pragmatic and put positive steps in your life, and just try to work within the skin that you're in, and try to be happy, to try to be a little happy. And this is all we tell as MGTOWs, we're empathetic towards the incels, and we tell them all the time, just try to work within the skin you're in, work out a little, get a little healthier, go to college, whatever it needs, or just do I'm taking a course right now online. I should, at my age and everything, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And it's about this subject right here. It's the lottery of birth, and sort of this, since I did miss out on the gender dynamics courses in school, that I figured I'd go back and take a few, just so I can learn the language at least. And so you got the social economic inequalities, and we must arrange these things to the benefit the least advantage in society, or at least some we have to benefit. Nowadays, with the new Trumpian whole thing, the benefits go for the most advantage, and there's going to be some sort of weird, freaky trickle-down economics that's going to happen during this thing that in my lifetime I haven't seen, but we'll see whether it happens and everything. And we look at Dewey and James, and we look at what is good and what is good in life. And Dewey settled this thing, and Dewey was the justice on the Supreme Court in the 1940s and so. And what is good? What is justice? What is equal basic liberties? And when we think about what it is we're trying to do good, and what's good is for them. The good in society is something that's for the most amount of people. So when you look at these things, and we make laws, we make arguments about justice and the theory of justice and the social contract, and that's what we're talking about. But this magical, and I was going to go back to Wolf on this thing, and this magical social contract that isn't a social contract at all. There's contradictions in this sort of philosophy when everybody says, and I hear this all the time, but Joe, we got the social contract. Well, with how we're going to act, we're going to have kids, we're going to do work, we're going to pay our taxes, we're going to do that. And I think nowadays there is no social contract to be had. And if anybody can please explain what the social contract is nowadays, they sort of violated that, didn't they? Somewhere during the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and up to 2016. they kind of violated that social contract, and that was part of the argument with that Rawls was having about generational gaps and everything. And I hear this with the incels all the time. They're always blaming the baby boomer generation for their problems now, and there's this generational gap that there's an intergenerational justice, and addressing the problem of this intergenerational justice. This is part of the four stages of justice too. When you start looking at the theory of justice, the four stages are sequenced in the principles of and applications of rules. Um, Addressing the problem of intergenerational justice is the top one. Arguing in inclusive natural duties and obligations within concepts of justice is the second one, and that's what I was just talking about. So we got intergenerational justice, which the incels, a big problem with the incels, and I can see how they would cross that over with their minds. And the concept of what is the social contract? Nobody seems to know anymore, and that's what I often hear this argument when I talk that, Joe, we got some huge social contract, but nobody can describe it. And that's why I brought up Wolf, because Wolf said there is no social contract at all. It's just an imaginary thing they've and that's what we got with media. Media is going to tell you how to act. Social justice is going to tell you how to act. They're going to do this through addressing good. And I explain good from Dewey. Good is what's good for the most amount of people, and self-respect, excellence, who's excellent, who's not, shame, envy. They're gonna shame men. You're gonna have envy. We can see the envy building, and in the incels about their natural position in life, and it goes back to the good thing about the lottery of birth. The lottery of birth. How can we address this thing? The lottery of birth. So we went full circle there around. And we try to articulate this theory of justice in fairness. What would be fair to the incels? I know I can't change certain things for them. I know that their genetic destination on life through sexual diversity was to be this human being that they are. And I can't, as much as I have a God complex, sometimes I can't change that. The PUAs can change that. Please go see a PUA. And that's what we tell them most of the time. And then we get these crossovers between the PUAs, which claim to be the original MGTOWs, which they ain't. And that was just a bullshit. That argument of masculinity that they had was some bullshit. Whatever, somebody made it up and everything. It's just garbage, and it really never existed. It was just a manipulation between the feeders and the guys over there. Let me see who's in. Let me go back to the page here, and chopping me up. Garchamp chopping me up in the square parts could save 8 people needed square parts. That's funny. So PJ, pretentious hermit. Hey, pretentious hermit. A boy named Gilroy. Hello. Who else is in here? So we were talking about the incels, and we're talking about social justice, and we're talking about their concepts of social justice, and how they really are. They don't have these things in life that most people. The human condition is going to be lower for them, and I think that all in all. It hasn't came to a point where men are looked up as humans, and incels being men. When I looked out today over the liberal side of the scheme, and I was looking at all the liberals that do, and these are guys like Tucker Carlson, to the opposite side of Tucker Carlson, and that the Young Turks are one of them. They talk about the Young Turks, Anna Kasparian, and Sam Cedar, and Thom Hartman. And Thom, I got in the argument over there about they're dogging on the incels, and I couldn't understand. Well, if you guys are supposed to be for this equal opportunity, you're up for feminism and everything, and you're saying, and I'll say it a million times, that feminists are just female incels, and they're very unhappy about this thing, and if we look at one side, we look at the other side, and that's what they are. And I just say the cure to this thing is if we just take the fem cells and the incels and we put them together in a room and had a big a dance, and they would all go home together and have little genetic mutations for babies. but or at least have some fun doing it, and then problem solved. But we're going to have to go through this whole social justice thing, and we're going to have to go through what is this and and it's going to come out, and whatever the normative is going to be in society. And we know laws basically, they manufacture themselves. Laws will manufacture themselves through what are the norms in society. And this will be the new norms in society. We see it growing. It doesn't seem to be stoppable. We can't go back to traditionalism, because traditionalism is just they're retarded, and nobody wants to go back to being the unoriginal people. And traditionalism and unoriginality are the same things. They're synonymous. Nobody wants to go back to that because it doesn't work. And if we go back to that, we just have to repeat it again. And that whole process of the 60s and 70s and 80s, especially, nobody wants to go back to the 80s. I don't want to go. No more 80s. That was the weirdest time in the whole world. And if they're going to look at like what was the weirdest time in the whole world ever have been, they're going to come up with the 80s. Yeah, did you see them things that they were wearing, the way they looked? I mean, Jesus Christ. They were like dork hippies is what they were. Hello, Whiskey, hello, Savage. So with social justice and all that thing, we're going to have to go through it, and somebody's going to have to, it'll take a great philosopher at a certain point to pin down what the theory of justice is going to be when we look at these things, and what normative laws will come from it, and that'll be social justice laws. And so we were taking a look at 71 and Rawls, and we'll probably, Foucault had a lot to do with that, and it works up, and then from there the chain of feminism started. The chain of feminism, and which are just female incels. They're females that can't get the alpha. Now I had a whole thing planned on the 80-20 rule, and the incels often talk about the 80-20 rule. And what is the 80-20 rule? And this is a big thing with the incels. 80%, excuse me, 20% of the men are going to get 80% of the women, is what they're saying. That's an observational rule. It's not a really rule. It's not like some of the other rules, and I can't remember the guy's name off the tip of my tongue right now. But the 80-20 rule is the Pareto principle. If you look it up, it's the Pareto principle, and this is back in 1821. It's nothing new to this world. The 80-20 rule is nothing new to this world. He looked around Italy at that time. Pareto wasn't into Italy, and I think it was 1820. It might have been 1851, but my history is a little weak today. But he looked around Italy, and he sees there's a wealth equality from 20% of the population had 80% of the wealth, which looks a lot like it looks now in America. 20% of the population has 80% of the wealth in America. So nothing seems to change in that, but when you look at it, it's a myth. It's because it's not a rule. It's just an observation of things, and you can make these observations into little paradoxes and make them into and you can make almost anything into something that's real. 20% of input creatures, make 80% of the 20% of the input creates 80% of the results, is what they're saying. 20% of the workers produce 80% of the results. 20% of the customers create 80% of the revenue. We see that with women too. They say 20%. They say the women they produce 80% of the of revenues, and we do this all the time. And 20% of the bugs cause 80% of the crashes, and we can do this with a lot of things. But we have to be careful when we do this in MGTOW, because the numbers don't generally typify the numbers don't generally typify what I would call the subsets. And it can be true for the incels that 20% of the males will get 80% of the females. And that's a reductionist rule. When you look at it, we're going to reduce these things to subsets. And then we're talking about the subset of the men between 18 and 32 years old. 20% of the men, that'll cover about 20% of the men in society between 8. The health is great. And of course, those men between 18 and 32 are going to get 80% of the available women. So it's what's available to them, that subset within that, and then that thing becomes true. It's not true for anybody 17 to say 2, and it's not true to anybody over 32 to 80 that really doesn't pertain to men like that. So it's only true within a subset, and that's where it's true, and you can make it true if you want. So I was going to go over this whole thing, but I figured that was too simple. That was too simple to kind of deconstruct the 80-20 rule. And if you want to look it up, it's the Pareto principle. And that was a big thing with the incels. So we covered we covered a lot of things that incels would talk about today. We covered how they think they were somehow unjustly treated by the gods in this genetic lottery. And they're right. They're 100%. It was more of their parents' choice on who to mate with. And if they were born in the Allegheny Mountains in the 40s and 50s, they would mate with their cousin, and then they'd have little deformed little babies. And those would be the incels. And that's sad. Genetic diversity adds to this stuff. And a lot of people look at diversity and they go, oh, Joe, that's social justice. No, genetic diversity is totally different. It's the XXYY. If the genes go too low and they're too close together, if a brother mates with a sister, it's too low, so the female body will reject the gene up to a point. Now that's when you start looking at genetic diversity. Higher genetic diversity will produce more beautiful children. More complete children, more children that are better capable of surviving on this planet. And that's all we're talking about with the XX and the YY thing. But people go, oh, social justice. Joe, you're social justice warrior. And it's like, no, we're not talking about, we're talking about two fields that are off the field to each other. We're talking about diversity in the sense of world races and stuff like that, which I don't even want to get into, because every time I seem to get into diversity in the sense of race, everybody just starts yelling at me. But so I'll stick with the sexual diversity thing, and we'll stick with that, and we'll say, yes, if you mate with your cousin, you're going to have little retarded children. And that's just the truth. So we talked about lottery of birth. We talked about sexual diversity. We talked about the theory of justice with these things, and then the incels. And we talked about the other group of the liberals and the progressives and how they were dogging on the incels. But it comes hypocritical to me, and they become very hypocritical to me when they'll say, we got this feminism thing, and feminism is the same is just female incels. And so it's gynocentrism. So it's more of what I'm doing today is more of an argument for gynocentrism, because I see in the same group of men, this may be Simpson's paradox or something playing itself out. I don't know. But in the same group of men, they'll often argue against gynocentrism because it becomes convenient too. I was watching the Purple Pillars would argue against. This seems to be the first thing they argue against, because if a gynocentrism is true, it would simply mean that sexual cryptis is true, and they're not going to have a very good chance in that 80-20 thing in their minds. Let me approve some of these messages. I have to approve each messages because YouTube is my moderator, and they said that I was going to have to do that because I'm going to do the same thing I always do. I'm going to talk about girls, so they don't like that. I grew up in Italy, who still did arranged marriages. Yeah, arranged marriage. Cousins married and branch of retarded gay kids. Yeah, that's what happens when Easter Island. I like the Easter Island thing. We were going to talk about that at some point, about the Easter Island. I think that's an Easter Island head there. The Easter Island heads there about religion and metaphysics of religion, and this certain group of people on Easter Island, and they were not influenced by any other culture in the world. They weren't Jewish, they weren't Christian, they weren't whites, they weren't blacks, they weren't maybe they were Polynesian, but still they're out in this island where no one else could get to them, and they develop these godlike figures. So it's intrinsic within us to want to have something greater than ourselves in the universe. And it's an interesting concept that Darwin went over with the Easter Island thing, but that's neither here nor there. I cussed. Yeah, you did cuss. I had to approve the message because you cussed, PJP, and YouTube's doing my moderation for me. And it's funny, they give me a little thing, bing, bad word. Some of the things they think are bad words too are just weird. I'll say like weirdo, and they'll go, "Oops, bad word." It's like, now that's when we can see this social theory of justice moving out into almost bad. It's bad things when you can't say weirdo or retard or gay. And they're going to block you, and then you're going to get little points on your social record for saying those things. That's not a society which I would consider. The plight of building justice, a theory of justice, is building a perfect society. And like in the movie Demolition Man, if you're walking down the road and you're getting little tickets that are costing you money for using bad words, I think that was an accentuated point that they were making, and Demolition Man had a lot to do with the theory of justice and how the theory of justice would develop, perceived in the artistic view through Hollywood, I suppose, but that's one of the things even they noticed. You could take this thing too far. And when I started looking at Rawls and that, first thing I noticed was very bare bones. It was a very bare bones. It wasn't even close to being like Kant or Hobbes, or in the descriptions that you would get from Michael Foucault. It was a very bare bones idea in 1971 that's been building for a long time, and it's become this thing, this monster, this demon that we argue with all the time. Social justice warriors, and then you can see this thing flip back and forth between parties too, and it's very interesting how. Just a few years ago with Obamaites and the Trumpite, well, the 2B Trumpites, or the 2B Tea Party movement, or what they called themselves, the Libertarians at that time. I can't figure that thing out. They changed their names so much anymore, or they changed their brand. They rebrand themselves every few years. So they were yelling at and they were, "Oh, you are all soy boys and sissies and everything." Now that thing sort of flipped. And now the progressives over on this new progressive movement is really building. You can see it with AOC and all that stuff. And I find it interesting. I kind of watch it from afar because I don't like to get into those things. But I do like the philosophy of things, and where the philosophy, and I can point out where their philosophy is going wrong if they would ever listen to me, and but they don't want to because I'm probably way too in depth for them. Most people, they were just dogging on the incels, and I was like, dudes, that's not very progressive. And then I started thinking about what I am and MGTOW and everything. MGTOW is progressive as fuck. I mean, we are on the edge of progressive. We're on the edge of this new thing that men are moving in, and we're on the edge of this thing, and nobody wants to give nobody wants to give MGTOW any credit because, you know, hey, we're in their eyes, they're becoming almost the unoriginal ones in the traditional in the sense of maybe the 60s and 70s hippie movement and everything, and the liberal movement of all that stuff, and the theory of justice is changing, and they're becoming the old now. And that's why we talk about the transitional generational thing. They're becoming the old, and as new progressives are looking back at them old progressives and going, you guys weren't good enough. It still didn't fix the problem. And MGTOW's going, hey, we got a pretty good fix over here, but just don't get so triggery on us. And then they come and they get all triggery on us because you guys hate women. No, we don't hate women. We just have a different theory about how this thing would work better. And if you ever listened, I'll put it up on a video someday and basically explain it. I'll explain it. I'll mansplain it for them, and then they'll get mad at me for mansplaining things about how things are supposed to work within the confines of sexual cryptis. I was thinking about this thing today when I watched the BGS, and I like BGS. Everybody knows he's one of my favorite people in the whole world. I love you, BGS. You're my dude. And he put the boy up on the show that it was like, is this your baby? And the girlfriend sitting there, and the mother was sitting here, and the mother of the mother of the mother in the audience were, and he comes back and is, no, that is not your baby. And the boy just started weeping on stage because all of his dreams about being a father were crushed. And he had 2 kids, and they come back again. It came back again. And he says, now the second kid, is this your baby? And all the climax were building, and everybody in the audience was crying. And they said, no, it's not your baby. And I was thinking, cool, dude. I wish I was there because I would run up there, grab him, and say, you're free. But he wasn't looking at it that way. He was weeping, and he was simping, and he wanted to be the cuck daddy. And the women up there were telling him, all you got to do is be the cuck daddy. And this is your duty in life. And that's when we start getting into this this thing with sexual cryptis. All the females think that all the men think that the babies are theirs. Every man thinks that baby's theirs. And that's sexual cryptis. All the females want all the men to think that all the babies are theirs and take care of them in a communal group rather than a father group. And that's sexual cryptis explained to the T. And then, but we could see this play out in the video that BGS was playing today. And the women were like, you got to man up. And this boy was like, he's 17 years old, and his life is going to be taking care of these 2 kids now that every time he looks at them are going to resemble, it's just going to bring back up those horrible moments that he realized that he wasn't their dad, and she was out with the alpha male, and now he gets to raise their kids. But all the women in the audience were like, man up, man up, man up. And I thought that's sexual cryptis playing out, because when he got up the first time, he got up and he started getting angry. Like any man would get angry in a situation where you find out that the kids that you thought were your kids are Chad's and Tyrone's kids. And so he got, and there was this one moment where this woman's face, she was crying and she was feeling so bad for him. As long as he was the cuck daddy, he was all, that's the oofy doofy. As long as he was the oofy doofy, everything was okay. As long as he was the wounded bird, everything was going to be okay on that. But he got up and he was like, get away from me. And then the look of horror on that female's face when he violated the social contract. And that's what I was trying to get to. There's this social contract with men. And some of the parts of that social contract that women feel are the social contract with men are cuck daddy rules, are be a good man, man up rules. That's part of the social contract. But it's but we know, but they're not telling us that yeah, I gotta love a bit of the oofy doofy. Yeah, you gotta love that. I do the oofy doofy now once in a while. It's like I said, my buddy was looking at these 2 women the other day, and I says, you want that girl? And I said, I'll just do the oofy doofy, and then you just come in and swoop in, and you can take them both because I don't want one. But after I do the oofy doofy, you can You can do it. And he goes, no, I don't want it. I got time for this now. It's like, okay, you said you wanted him, but Doofy's fun. Uh, but yeah, as long as he was doing that, as long as he was the wounded bird, as long as he was the subservient beta male, everything was okay with the females. But as soon as he showed a little anger, the look of horror on their faces was just superb. It was superb. And that's what the toxic male is. The toxic male is when the male in our society, the MGTOW, when he sees that this just thing is all pre-cucked. We're all pre-cucked by taxes. We're paying for everything. There is no set of social rules anymore, or no social contract that I have to abide by in some certain thing, and everything's out the door, and it's all become the the brush turkey and who can build the biggest house for the female and all that garbage and all that. From cresting seashells to evolution through brush turkeys up to the apes and bonobo apes and everything, and how the female took over the bonobo ape society and that stuff. And I can see women they just want all the men to think that every man that's his baby, and just kind of lean in and chip in. And that's what this lean in thing is. That's what we see in society. That's what Health and Human Services is for. All men think all babies are theirs to take care of. We pay taxes. We're altruistic. We buy into this thing. But MGTOW threatens this whole social climate because we're asking questions. We're capable now of each one of us are capable now of with the intelligent factors today. And I do think there's a sort of social Darwinism, a mental, what did I call it? There's a mind social Darwinism. Our minds are growing at a fantastic rate nowadays, and we learn about our society. Now that I know about sexual cryptis, and I know that the girl wants and I know how society works, I can't buy into that because that just squarely puts us in a slave position. But when we ask these questions, why are men slaves after divorce? Why are men? Because that's it. Because the theory of justice and the social norms have come to legal impasses, which laws become the social norms, and we made it that way. So the lottery of birth, I went the long way around in this thing. The lottery of birth has a lot to do with what's going on in today's world. And it's going to be formed, and it's going to be formed right before all you young guys' eyes. Like I got to watch the world grow from phone booths and black and white TVs into computers, and I can talk to my buddy in Kyrgyzstan over in Nepal, and I got to watch that whole magic thing happen. So young guys now from 20 to 30, you're going to get to watch some whole magic social justice events unwinding in front of you, and you're not going to be able to do it. But MGTOW, here's where MGTOW comes in. We can be a really big force in this thing, and how to and we have to become a big force in this thing. IBMOR has to become a force. The incels have to become a force. The TFLers have to become a force in this, or else the laws in 20, 30, 40, 50 years aren't going to reflect our needs. They'll still reflect the gynocentric needs under sexual cryptis laws. And nothing will change if nothing changes. In the last movement, we men with a pre-Mesopoic era men with Big John and Mesker and all those guys, they failed back then to realize that they had to be more active in talking about these things. And then when we argue amongst ourselves and we argue with the incels, we're doing exactly what our forefathers failed to do, between the last 40 years of failure here. And then now we see that the social justice rules don't reflect our interests. Yeah, that's because we were too busy arguing between ourselves and not being empathetic to our incel brothers and our TFL brothers and our PUA brothers, which, yeah, they're kind of assholes. They're dicks, but we got to be more empathetic to at least their positions. And it's okay to, yeah, they're a little bit of a dickish, but what are we going to do about that? We can't always, we come from different segments of society, different races, different colors, different creeds, different oranges, oranges. Trump fucked that word up so bad. He says oranges, origins. We come from different origins and oranges or orange. I just love that. He couldn't say it. Maybe he needed some water. Incels are often little use to anyone now. Yeah. Yeah. But it unfolds in front of us, and it gives us things to think about, and it gives us a greater understanding of the world we live in, and that's the important part for MGTOWs. We're not interested in. I could give a shit what feminism is doing. I could give a shit what most political things are doing. I just sit and laugh most of the time because they are just so funny. I know that the single male doesn't have a vote in Congress or the House or the Senate, you have to be married to climb up any social institution in America, like the FBI or the CIA or the Department of Justice or any of these things. You have to be a married man to be in their group. And that's where we get we get ostracized. Single guys have been getting ostracized from society for a long time, so this is nothing new to us. But these are things we have to change because 42% of society is now single. And that's a new thing on the world. So when we talk about systems of justice and these things, theory of justice and how it's going to develop normatively in our society, yeah, we got to be an active part of that, and we have to be verbal as MGTOWs. We have to put ourselves out there as MGTOWs, and this is the single guy's voice. This is the bachelor's voice, and we're 42%, and that's what we're saying. We're 42% of voters, you fuckers. Start thinking about that. And I think they should start thinking about it. And we get courted by other groups. The alt-right courted MGTOW. They wanted to vote for the alt-right and vote for this party. And I don't think the Progressive Party has courted us because we just don't believe that feminism is anything more than like I say, they're just female incels. They're just the other side of that argument. And until these progressives can admit that, then there's nothing for us to talk about because they're just going to deny it, and it's going to be a one-sided argument that's filled with more absurdity and chaos until they get it. Yeah, oranges. My father's oranges. I just cracked up so hard. I was like, yeah, you go PT. You President Trump. He's something. It's funny watching politics. When you turn on the YouTube, I don't know about you, what comes in your feed, but I get saturated with every side and every version and every person, from the local hillbilly down in Alabama to the people in the Department of Justice all want to sway my opinion. That's the way I must be pretty important because this all comes to my Google. Jesus. You would think so. Oh man. But back to the incels and the lottery of birth. We can work this thing out and we can do a lot with it. But I think at the end of this whole thing, being comfortable within your skin is the biggest thing that MGTOW can give anybody. Uh, hey, no matter what you are, if you're as pretty as me, then God bless you. Uh, God bless you. But if you're not, if you got some defects, I know I got defects myself, and God knows I got defects. But you just get comfortable within your skin and think of yourself in the best way possible. And a lot of those things are iron itself out. Do those deep introspections. Figure out what you do the best in this whole world, and and that's it. It'll work out. We all have to go through this thing, and it's the same world, and the same rules exist for all of us, and we have to watch the same absurdity. Get comfortable with that absurdity and get comfortable with that chaos. Like I said, you live and you die, and you're born and then you're negated, and you become the not at a certain point. So try in between this thing, try to have a little happiness in your life and try to have a good time doing it, because otherwise it's really going to suck. And then you're going to try to negate yourself earlier. And as we approach 8 billion people on this planet, which is just really remarkably, I mean, it's just remarkable to think there's 8 billion people on this planet, and then it's like, oh yeah, I think we pretty much covered it. Hey, if that Bible is true, I think we're pretty much there. you know but but if you ask the Christians, that's Jesus is gonna come down soon, and that's pretty funny in itself, the metaphysics of negation. And I think we'll do it through climate change, and we'll just negate ourselves through nuclear war or climate change and restart this whole thing up again, which would be better. Then I get to do it all over again. But there's not a lot that I can do to change I can't slow the train down. I'm just one guy. That'll take a whole bunch of us and a whole bunch of MGTOW supermen. I think we can slow the train down a little bit. I think we can change the world. And that's what's important. One person, sometimes by the fluke of magic or whatever, can change the world. We look at Nelson Mandela and Jesse Jackson and all these events through one guy. He just had a bigger dream than the rest of us, and I think MGTOWs are that one guy. At least it'll be easier if we do it in a group. So there's some interesting things. I haven't even kind of did any research on the TFLs and what that is about. And somebody was asking me the other day, is incel and TFL the same thing? And I guess you'd have to go to Bill Gravehouse and the Hoka and find out, get the lowdown on that, because I really don't know if TFLs, that's true forced loneliness. A movement that started in the late 2000s. What was that guy that started that? Hoka knows who that guy was. True Forced Loneliness. Had a book out for a while about that. But I think it's just the same as incel in this world that we live in, and that's probably it. But most people, most men know. I hear the POAs all the time. It's like never a moment without any female company. But most men know that you're going to have a dry point in your life if you're dating or you're doing that stuff. And there's going to be a 6 month dry point where you're going to be able to experience incel. And that's everybody. That's male and female. And no matter how beautiful you are or how strong you are, fast or how healthy you are, you're going to go through a dry point. You're going to be able to experience involuntary celibacy at some point. So the whole idea seems to be a little wanky to me, I suppose. And everybody should be pretty familiar with that dry point. So even the guys, the PUAs that, the world travelers with millions of dollars in their pockets, just, women hanging off of them, so they say. But yeah, we know how braggadocious they are and how ridiculous they can be. But they have to present themselves that way to get the incels to buy into their wanky theory about how to pick up girls, pick up artists. Wow. Wow. World's a different place nowadays, isn't it? Brakes. TFM is correct about crazy train not having brakes. Yeah. Yeah. I think, what was that? Jeffro Tall and said it the best. Hey, this train ain't slowing down. Locomotive Breath. What a great song that is. I love that guitar. I wish I had my guitar here. I'd strum it for you, but I don't. Locomotive Breath. What a great song. That was a great MGTOW song too. If you listen to the words of Locomotive Breath, he's talking about a guy that's wife just fucked him over, and he says, "Hey man, this train ain't slowing down, bitch." Charlie, that's what he was saying. Charlie lost a brake key. Okay, so that's all I wanted to talk about, and I hope you learned something today, or or at least if I was entertaining today, I hope that's good enough. There's been a real shortage of MGTOW podcasts lately. Maybe MGTOWs can step it up a little bit and do podcasting and take podcasting a little more seriously, but it is springtime, and you ask SFM what happens in the spring. It's going to get crazy out there. They're going to be walking around with their come F me shorts on and their T-tops and the little shirts with the boobies hanging out and everything. And all the boys are going to start feeling their natural inclination to be thugs, and it's going to get crazy. I can't wait for the first Friday. I thought that this week would be the first warm Friday, but maybe next week or the week after we're going to hit that 72-degree day, and they're all going to come out on Friday. I'm just going up to the town center, and I'm going to bring my camera and just film everything because it's going to get good. It's going to get good. I'll just sit there with a Pepsi on the mailbox or by the mailbox and just watch, because that's what MGTOW's about anyways. Just sitting on the MGTOW bench, just observing the world, and you get to laugh and point and go, look at all these jackasses doing that mating thing. And it's going to be spring soon, so they're going to be out there doing the rutting and the bulling. Don't get yourself too close because you'll get hurt. Horny, simping mofos. Yes, they are, SFM. Yes, they are. They're going to be out there just, the things that you're going to see. It'll be entertaining, probably a lot more entertaining than the internet could ever be. So get out and try to enjoy that on the first spring day that you're going to have. And because I know I'm going to do that. I'm going to be out there with my camera. I want to get some film of it. I'll just go up to the epicenter the town I live in, which is a very small town, and the epicenter is the 2 gas stations with the Rite Aid. Damn. But that's all I wanted to talk about, is the, this, how what the incels are saying is practical. And it's, if they just start articulating themselves in a more intellectual way, that they can insert themselves into the argument. And that's the only way they're going to change anything for themselves, if they insert themselves into the argument. And but that's up to each and every single one of them. Like I would say, MGTOW is up to each and every one of you guys here, and each one of you guys play your part, and I play my part, and it all becomes this MGTOW thing. The incel groups, they have to learn the same thing, and they have to insert themselves into the argument. And that argument that they have to insert themselves is in direct confrontation with the femcells, the feminists. So that should get interesting, but but it'll be interesting for us to watch, because we get to sit on the MGTOW bench and point and laugh and go, what a bunch of idiots. And at some certain point, as a MGTOW, you're going to have to take the high road on this thing and just relax and cave to the absurdity and the chaos and say, yep, that's all it is. And as soon as I accept that fact in my life and just try to be a little bit happy, I'll just consider myself happy, and that'll be good enough. And that's all I really want for each and one of you guys, is to consider just imagine yourself happy. That's all you're doing anyway. Just imagine yourself happy, and it's going to get weird, and it's going to get chaotic, and it's going to get creepy at some points around here, at least with the world that we live in, and the discussions we're going to have to take on in the next few years. I don't think progressivism is going away, and why should it? Because MGTOW is the forebearer of progressivism. I think we started this whole thing by asking the simple question, what place in this? What's the real place of men in this thing? What is the real? What's the real on it? I'm sick of falling into traps. I'm sick of looking around and seeing men miserable and capping themselves. I got to ask the questions. I got to do the research, because I know they're not capable of it. And I know that's a big burden on the back, and we always have these big burdens on the back, like holding up that big moon right there. We're always holding up the world on our backs. It's going to be like it always is for men. Take on the challenge, put the world on your back, and fix this problem, or else it's never going to get fixed. And that's the problem MGTOWs have. We're going to have to fix it for the world. And with that, I think I'm about done. I got to go get Dougie. He needs a bath again. He needs a bath every day now, because he urinates on himself like an old drunk. Can't say I haven't done it a couple times in my life, but but he makes a habit out of it now. He's old, and he's sick, and he needs some love, and that's what I'm here for, to give him that love he needs while he passes on. And at least I could be empathetic for that. And with that, I'll thank each and every one of you guys, and thanks for coming around. Thanks for listening to my sometimes disjointed ramblings, and if you get it, then you get it. If you don't, I don't really care. I don't really care. And that's about it. Thanks a lot for coming around, guys. And like I said, it's up to each and every one of you to do your part and keep this thing going. And we can't change the world for men. We can make it a better place. Just keep going on. We got to trudge on. This train ain't stopping. And that's it. That's it. But most of all, man, I just want to say thanks for being MGTOW. MGTOW.